I started on Dan's team when I was 17 years old. I think 16 actually. I started off as a video editor slash videographer. So I was just filming and editing the videos. And, always was hungry for more, always wanted to kind of execute at a higher level. And so that I had to flex the muscle of being a manager at age 19 with people older than me reporting to me and asking me for advice on what I think about, the marketing strategy of the company.
What was the big shift that you would say that you needed to make in order to go from the 100K followers to, really scale to millions and millions of people?
We were originally super aimed towards SaaS founders. And then at that point, he wrote a book called Buy Back Your Time, kind of more of a business productivity book. And we knew that for us to get that book in more people's hands, we had to go all in on his personal brand. And over time, we were able to, turn that attention into dollars. But on the other side of us, putting the work in, it was insane, the amount of lives that we transformed.
For the people that want to go deep with their clients, you've definitely done that. You've gone deep with Dan. You've been there all this time. What would you say to them? Like, what's the thinking process of going deep like you have?
If I had to distill it to like the single thing that most people don't think of is their 10, 25, and 50-year goals. And so I've told this to Dan, and we've told this to each other thousands of times. We will work together forever, right? Like that's just known. And so with that frame, we're able to plan in 10, 15, 25-year increments where we know where we're going, right?
What impresses you about a good scriptwriter?
For me, a really good copywriter does a few things. Number one is they have the ability to mention reframes without even thinking about it, or what Mr. Beast calls the retention mechanism, which is essentially what's going to get people to watch the whole video. And I think that's what really, really good scriptwriters and copywriters are able to do, is mention things that aren't necessarily second nature, but when you hear them, they're obvious, and you get that aha moment.
It's so cool that this is slightly different vertical to what I do on a day-to-day basis, and yet I see the parallels like perfectly when we write emails and we write sales letters and ads and whatever, because this is exactly what we do as copywriters. Where do you think copywriters and marketers should be focusing their energy over the next couple of years?
What I understand is, attention and psychology. I'll just share this. What will separate you from everybody else is, and if you don't have that distilled, you will fall behind.
All right, so I'm here with Sam Gaudet. Nice to have you here, bro. We go way back.
Excited.
It's been a
excited.
moment.
It's been like 3 years, so I'm pumped to dive in.
Last time we were chatting, Dan Martell's, in Dan Martell's world, you guys were back at like 100,000 followers across all platforms, and now it's like what, 9 million or something? Like you guys have really done a lot.
Oh yeah, that dialed it up. GoPro is what Dan likes to call it.
It's fun because I was working with you guys and I was in the team for a while, and I knew how important it was to you and to Dan to really get the brand to that level of like much more awareness, because it was mostly just catered towards software founders. What was the big shift that you would say that you needed to make in order to go from the 100K followers to, really scale to millions and millions of people?
Yeah, I think you said it there. It was because we were originally super aimed towards SaaS founders. And obviously Dan had built, 3 software companies, exited those 3, helped over 1,000 software founders, scale their businesses, over, I think 50, 60 or 70 exits, right? Insane results for clients. And then at that point, he wrote a book called Buy Back Your Time, kind of more of a business productivity book. And we knew that for us to get that book in more people's hands, we had to go all in on his personal brand. And that was a catalyst to, everything that we started doing at Martell Media, deciding to go pro on the YouTube side, decided to spend real dollars and time on scaling those processes, right? And it didn't come easy. It wasn't, overnight. It was, 6 to 12 months of serious, heads down work until we really started to see results. But on the other side of us, putting the work in, it was insane, the amount of lives that we transformed. And obviously, a lot of attention is generated, and a lot of praise, and that was super cool. And over time, we were able to, turn that attention into dollars in Martell Ventures, or AI incubator now, and which I think is kind of something that not a lot of people talk about, which is how we're actually able to monetize our audience at the highest level.
Interesting. Well, I'd like to talk about that for sure. I'm curious. You said that you spend a little bit of money. You had to put money behind that content. Do you mean like building out a media team to do it at volume, or is that really what it was?
Yeah, because a lot of people message me. They think like I'm the only person doing Dan's content, right? They think I'm a one-man show, and I like the compliment, but I have a team of people that run this operation, and nobody works for free, so we pay them
Mm,
well. And for if anybody wants to go pro, there's phases and there's levels where you start small and you kind of scale up and you monetize as you scale. But at the highest level, the biggest content creators online right now are spending multi six figures a month on media,
yeah.
right? And that sounds like a lot until you realize how much that attention is worth, right? Because if you can spend multi six figures on organic content and you're getting like us over 200 million views a month, then how much would you pay on an ad platform to get those 200 million impressions, right? That would be a lot more than six figures, multi six figures, right? To get that high quality attention. And so that's kind of how we thought about the equation. And what's cool about a brand is it compounds over time. And yeah, you make the investment up front, and over time you get insane results and returns.
Yeah, it's fascinating. That's scaling on organic is such a different beast to paid. Like the way you think about it, I mean, there are obviously some similarities, but like even the algorithm, the way it's changed as well. Because in the past, you could send content to your followers and they would just keep seeing your content because it was subscription or like follower based. Whereas
Yeah.
now it's not like that, right? It's like you could put out a piece of content and your subscribers not necessarily going to see it. It has to be so good that YouTube would show it to them regardless of if they're a subscriber, right?
Yeah, we used to be community based where you would post something on Facebook and all your friends would see it, but now it's more interest based where if I make a video on a certain topic, and we can dive into like topic selection and how important that is when you're creating content. If I make a video on a certain topic, it's going to be seen by a completely different audience every single time, right? Because the algorithm's getting so smart where anytime that you mention a word or a name or any type of framework, it's finding its audience. And guess what? If you make a shitty piece of content and you have 1 million followers, it's not going to get any views. And vice versa. If you have 100 followers and you make a really fucking solid piece of content, you're going to get 1 million views. And that's why I think, the algorithms change for the better, which is what small creators are able to scale at a fast rate these days, faster than I've ever seen it.
Because of the interest versus community, like it's interest first.
100%.
Here's something that I think a lot of people are concerned about when it comes to like that stuff, right? Where it's interest. It's like, well, do I just end up then catering to whatever the market says that they want to hear from? Like now I'm kind of like a bit of a dancing monkey. It's like, oh no, we want to hear about this, and like, is this okay now? Do you like this? And then there's like, we changed this. It's like, okay, is this okay now? How do you kind of find that middle ground?
It's exactly what that is. It's a middle ground, right? And I see it as a Venn diagram where there's 3 parts, right? The first part is fit. Does that fit with your kind of audience and also your products? So if a video of Dan talking about, I don't know, sports blows up online, are we going to make more sports videos if it doesn't have fit with our audience, which are entrepreneurs that want to scale businesses? Probably not, right? And so that's the first circle. The second circle is interest, which is, do you actually want to make that type of content? If you don't want to make that type of content, then that's totally fine, right? I've hundreds of times I've presented an idea or a topic to Dan, and I'm like, hey, let's talk about this because it has, fit with our audience. And if there's no interest, there's no interest, right? And I think people, especially creators, have to respect that, because if not, I've seen a ton of creators create content and create an audience over time that they fucking hate because they're just doing whatever has fit with their audience. And then the third part is demand, right? And that's what I'm an expert in, which is finding out what people want, which is exactly what you said. Kind of diving into what the broad audience actually wants, right? Where's the demand pockets? An example of that is you've probably seen 100 videos online of YouTubers make videos on how to make 2026 the best year of your life, right? Or like how to, change your life in 2026. That's an example of demand in January, right? Where people are actually doing, these New Year resolutions, like it or not. People are trying to get better in January. And so you see YouTube flooding with a ton of videos on how to get better in 2026. And so that's how I think about demand. And there's tons of examples throughout the year, or even throughout, a lifetime, where there's demand for certain things because topics are hot.
What's the process of finding that demand?
So we have, I call, there's two ways you could do it. One is you do kind of external research, and two is you do internal research. Once you've reached a scale where you have a ton of content online and data available to you, you're able to do what's called internal research, where you look at your top performers, your own top performers, and you figure out what works best. The problem with that is you don't really find any new ideas, but it's really good to kind of double down on what makes you unique and what also is, resonating with the market. The second way you do it is external research. And I have two hacks that I think 99% of people don't do. One is use Google search trends, because if you look at Google search trends, you will find pockets of demand where things are hot. An example of that is, tariffs were a big thing in April, right? And so everybody making content on tariffs in April were blowing up. Another example of that is, we just had something happen in Venezuela, right? A lot of people are searching that country and the people in that country. And I see a lot of, political creators creating content around Venezuela, right? I'm not saying that, you don't have to lean towards a political, but same thing in business, right? And so anytime that you see events, things happen, you want to hop on those trends. So that's kind of on the Google search trend side. If you want to find evergreen content that isn't necessarily, ebbing and flowing with the news, you do this thing called creating a research account. So on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, tons of platforms, I have research accounts where I follow people in Dan's niche. And what that algorithm gives me back is basically success stories, right? Like just a ton of people in the personal development space, a ton of people in the entrepreneurial space that are just creating content about being an entrepreneur. And that gives me a lot of insight on what kind of topics to pick. That being said, a lot of people would just look at that video and say, I'm going to remake that video. That's the biggest mistake I see most people make, is just copying other people's content for the sake of copying content. What you want to do is what I call, that's direct interpretation. What I call it, and what you want to do is indirect interpretation, which is basically take that piece of content, that topic, that format, and insert your unique perspectives, your story, your methodology, so that it changes it and makes it you. And that's how I've seen the best content creators consistently create content that has demand in the market.
That's interesting. That makes sense. So from what I'm getting, you obviously want to have a balance of evergreen content that is stuff that the market wants, that you're going to slowly grow with, but then you also kind of boost that with relevant topics that are like right now in demand, and then you just combine the two together. You add your own perspective. You find that fit with your market. That also, what else did you say here? That there's a demand as well, and then you blow the hell up.
100%. And guess what? That's like 90% of it. The other 10% is do whatever the fuck you want. Like, I tell people all the time, like, if you want to make a fun video about, the fact that, for example, Dan's a big snowboarder. Like, we just made a reel that's going to get posted in a couple weeks on, snowboarding, right? And how he learned business lessons from snowboarding. There's no validation for that topic. There's no demand, right? And so that's just the 1 out of 10 shots, per week that I allow my team to take, which are not measured on results, but measured on, are we building the brand up or down, right? And so Dan has all these things that makes him unique. Yeah. Dan has all these things that makes him unique, where, snowboarding, I don't know a lot of top entrepreneurs, top content creators that are, extreme sport athletes, right? Where Dan's a snowboarder, wake surfer, mountain biker, snow biker. Search, snow bikes if you want to see what those look like. It's insane. But that is something that, puts him in a category of one. So the more you can find stuff, especially that make you different, right, that you can lean into, you don't have to follow the demand for that 10% of the content that you're creating, as long as it's building up your brand.
That's interesting, because I think some people would say, no, you shouldn't do that stuff, because then you mess up the algorithm.
And look, I'm an algorithm, I study it, and I spend a lot of time on it, and I can tell you, like, sometimes you just have to make content that feels good, and a lot of times that's what saves creators from burning out, because the only way you don't lose is if you don't quit. And a lot of creators quit because it's hard, and it's hard because they don't make it easy. And we can talk about all the other ways that I make content creation easy for Dan. But essentially, like, he doesn't necessarily show up to a shoot feeling like it's work. He feels like it's fun. And we're able to create that environment for him. And that's why we're able to create content for the next, 20, 30 years.
You know, when we were working together, I remember there was a line that Dan would often say, which is, a lot of entrepreneurs, they build a business that they grow to hate. And then you were kind of speaking about something similar, almost as like build an audience that you grow to hate.
Exactly.
You're a creator that you end up becoming a dancing monkey for a bunch of people you don't actually want to be talking to. So how do you make content? Because obviously, like, people watching this, a lot of copywriters and marketers, I think that they're going to find a parallel with their work, whether it's on YouTube or whether it's even just writing copy or whether it's helping on Instagram. I mean, obviously Instagram is part of the big social growth that you guys had, but I think the main engine is YouTube, right? Like the core of it all is YouTube, right? They have to get their client to actually want to record stuff and, take the scripts and actually go and do it, or script or whatever it is. And I think that a lot of people struggle with that. It's like, how do I get my client to actually be on board with doing this,
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. That's part of kind of the buy-in. And I'm super blessed that Dan really wanted to kind of lean into it. So we went through the hard together. But yeah, when I see new content creators get into the game, they realize how much work it is to kind of set up a system that, doesn't feel like work. There's a lot of work done up front, and then over time you're able to kind of simplify and push down, delegate, and you get to a point where Dan only shows up for 3 hours a week, right? Where he's shooting content 3 hours a week, and for the rest of the week he's building Martell Ventures or AI Incubator, right? Where he's building real companies in his business, and he's not a content creator. And that's what I think makes Dan different, and I think that's our unique advantage, because most of his day is spent building companies. And so we're able to pull stories, pull insights, talk about things that most content creators in the business niche can't, because they're not actually operating businesses, right? They're just creating content.
They become content creators, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's why I've kind of and Dan's honestly pushed on us to basically take on most of the work on the content side so he can go focus on business building.
That's cool. I like it. Yeah, that's very cool. That's fun. So when it comes to that, then, when it comes to putting together, let's say, a shoot day, or collecting the scripts, or what's the process look like in terms of, getting everything that you need for done?
I think the overarching principle is extreme preparation. I think people underestimate the amount of prep that goes into running a successful YouTube channel. And so I'll just give you an example, right? If I shoot a YouTube video today, which I think we have a shoot later, that video is only going to get posted in, I'd say, 2 to 3 months, right? And so you can imagine how many videos we have from now until 2 months from now, right? Because we post, I think it's 8 videos a month. So we have around 16 videos in the pipeline that are at different stages, right? Some of them are just idling. They're in queue, right? We've shot them. They're waiting for an editor. Other ones are being edited currently by a ton of our in-house editors. Some of the other ones are in review, right? They're getting reviewed by our creative directors. They're, getting approved. They're, getting revisions. And then we always have 2. This is the key, 2 in the bank. So that are approved, that are ready to go, that are ready to fire off on YouTube, so that we're never chasing our tails, right?
Interesting.
And so that process, I think a lot of people forget that you have to build a system that doesn't break, right? Because like I said earlier, the ultimate advantage in content is to be able to do it for a long period of time. If you set your systems up in a place where in a way that don't break, that is the only way that you will not fall behind, right? And so we've been posting twice a week now for over a year and a half, and never missed a week, and that's been our ultimate advantage in the marketplace, is just pure consistency.
Yeah, getting ahead is big. It's not easy. I've had this challenge myself where we have content I've shot for. I probably have 3 months worth of footage still that we have to upload. But making sure that production line is tight, where the videos are ready to go, and we're not doing edits on the week. That kind of thing, because you need to sit with it sometimes. You need to give it a little bit of love. Sometimes pieces are not quite the way that. I always find that if you don't have a little bit of buffer, you don't actually get the quality. That's really where it compromises. It's like the video might still come out, but the quality is not as good. You know, the animation might not just be as you'd like it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. And then in terms of the actual,
The process, I can double click on the process because I think that's what you asked about. Is
yeah, like scripts, or like if a copywriter were to help with this process, like how does a copywriter help with the flow that you guys have?
Yeah, 100%. We call them scriptwriter because I have copywriters. They write, emails, all that stuff, social content. Our scriptwriters are still like, copywriters, but we call them scriptwriters just for the role. The way a video kind of goes through the pipeline, if we go from start to finish, because some people will ask like, 2 to 3 months, that's a lot of fucking time. What happens in those 2 to 3 months, right? And so, it starts with us coming up with an idea, right? And we use the same process that I talked about earlier, using custom accounts. We use other tools like One of 10, oneof10.com, a big fan. There's other tools like Velio that I've been testing from Marcus Jones. Those ones are cool. Doing market research on what people call outliers, which is basically videos that have performed on other channels disproportionately better than the average video on that channel, right? And so if I'm looking at an example of a channel in the business niche that gets on average around 100,000 views per video, and there's a video that gets 1 million views, right? I'm gonna go look at that video and ask myself, what about that video made it perform? And a lot of times it comes down to what we talked about earlier, which is the topic, right? What is this video about? And so I think that's where we do indirect interpretation, which is basically take that topic, right? Let's say it's, I don't know, AI tools, and then go into our production pipeline. And then once we have an idea, we develop a concept. So a concept is just a title, thumbnail, and promise, right? And I think, the people usually forget the third part, which is what is the person going to take away from this video? Because you can create a title, thumbnail example, but if you don't actually have the promise of the video in mind, you can mess up the whole production flow, right? And so an example of that is 15 AI tools that will make you rich in 2026 as a, title. The thumbnail could be Dan's big face and then some, AI tools, and then the text could be like $1,000 a day, right? And then if we go, one layer deeper on the promise, what's the promise of the video, right? Well, it's you're going to learn about AI tools that can make you money, right? And just saying that in a clear way before you even get into the scripting process really helps the scriptwriter and, people in the production pipeline understand what the people are taking away from this video, right? Similar to, when you join a coaching program, like your email dojo, you have an offer that tells people what they're going to get, right? And so we kind of write the offer of the YouTube video before we even get into production. And so once we have that, that's when we send it to Dan. And he goes through the title, thumbnail, promise, and then he shares his thoughts, right? He's like, in this video, I like this tool. I like this tool. I think we should frame it this way. So then we really get like that creative juice up front, right?
And you sit in a meeting and have that discussion.
Most of the time it's async. So we actually just send him like a batch of 4 and he does it, on his off time. A lot of the times it's just a voice note. And so it's really easy for him. He's like between meetings, he like looks at it. He's like, I want to do this for this video. Or it's, a couple bullet lines of text, but it's nowhere near a, finished script because I don't want him to spend time on that. Right. I want him to spend time on building businesses. And so he's, sharing, his thoughts on, this is what I think this video should be about. We used to not have that, but then we would build videos that weren't really aligned with who Dan is. And, I find a lot of creators lose touch, especially when they're scaling, by not having that step. And so we added that step pretty recently where he's, sharing his thoughts on the video, and that just makes for a way better video at the end. Then, this is where the scriptwriter comes in. And I just want to be clear, like, we don't really write scripts. We really write outlines. And so, Dan's not doing word for word. All we're doing is structuring his ideas in a way that are sequential, where, we have an outline that's displayed when he's shooting the videos so that he knows where he's going. So that it doesn't feel like work, but it's also not, reading word for word on a teleprompter. And I think that's where a lot of YouTubers actually mess up because you lose the authenticity unless you're a really good actor. And so the scriptwriter takes his ideas, he sequences them in a format. And if anyone listening wants, I've got a template for this, like a YouTube script template. If anybody listening wants this, just go on Instagram, message me like, I don't know, YouTube Matthew, to get the template.
Sweet.
YouTube
Yeah.
Matthew, and I'll send it over. Just put
Thanks, bro.
Matthew so I know where you came from. But basically, this template, we use it, we go through it. We have a really clear outline of where the video is going to go. Then we go into review stage. So we send it back to Dan. We're like, hey, this is the video. He goes through it. He's like, yep. Change this. Takes like 5 minutes. We do like 4 at a time. And then we go into the shooting process, which is basically we go in the studio. We have an outline there. We have our director. The director is accountable for the energy in the room. He, essentially guides Dan through the video. We're essentially having a conversation, just like now, right? Dan's shooting a video, but he feels like he's having a conversation with a friend, and I think that's the big thing that we were able to do in our pipeline. And then once the video's done shooting, then we go into the editing stage, then the approval stage, then posting, which is kind of a lengthy process. But that's like overview of how the YouTube production pipeline looks like.
That's interesting. What do you mean by like somebody that's a friend that he's talking to? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean the first part is we do a thing called subtext, and this is something I learned from Chris Williamson's speaking coach, and he has this line where at the start of every kind of outline or script, he puts the subtext, which is basically the subtext is who's the person you're talking to, right? And so for all of Dan's scripts, we have a person that he's talking to, whether it's, a 20-year-old just starting off, a 30-year-old that's deep in building, or a 40-year-old that is already successful, that has built a couple companies, that, is looking for his next level. And so every single script has what we call a subtext or a character, where he's speaking to that person. And before every shoot, we kind of remind him, hey, you're talking to X person. And the key is this person is a real person in Dan's life. So he actually can, put a face on them.
Yeah.
And so whether we're shooting a video about AI tools, or we're shooting a video about building a business, or we're shooting a video about, legacy, every single video has a subtext, and, the director kind of helps him talk to that friend, right? And so it doesn't feel like you're talking to a camera. It feels like you're talking to a real person.
Yeah, that's cool, because when we were working together, I remember when I was writing the emails, we had a software scaling Sam, I think it was. I think that was the name of one of the people that I was thinking in my head, okay, I'm writing to this person,
Yeah.
That's very, very good. That's a really dialed in process. It like really does require a team to be, going, like you can't have, if something breaks somewhere, the whole process is paused. So over the last year, I've seen something I've never seen before. Copywriters and marketers, they're making more money than ever before, especially the top 1%. And if you want to be one of them, and you want to join us, and you want to get, insights into exactly what's happening in our industry, and also get my raw and unfiltered thoughts, the stuff that we're not sharing here on YouTube, then apply to join my email list at list.copywriting.org. And I'll see you in my next email. Now let's get back to the video. I got a couple of copywriters I coach who help with script writing. Let's say that they want to do that kind of work. Let's say with you guys, it's like, what does that skill look like? What do they need to be good at? What impresses you about a good script writer?
That's a beautiful question that I've never been asked before, so I appreciate that. For me, a really good copywriter does a few things. I'd say number one is they have the ability to mention unique mechanisms and reframes without even thinking about it. And I think, I'm not the best copywriter in the world, but I understand persuasive writing. And, when we write a script, we're always thinking about, what's a unique mechanism that's going to make people watch, or what, Mr. Beast calls the retention mechanism, which is essentially, what's going to get people to watch the whole video. And a lot of times it could be as simple as, these are the 7 steps to scale your business, right? And, a really good copywriter or scriptwriter will even go one layer deeper and think about, what does the roadmap look like for this video, right? Because it's easy to just put, 7 steps on a screen. But what's hard is to think about, hey, if we're making a video about making $1 million, wouldn't it be cool if we put it in 12 steps, and those 12 steps would represent the 12 months in a year, and we'd use the roadmap that we would use would be a calendar, right? And so on the video, it'd be a calendar, and this is month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4. And that is what Mr. Beast calls a retention mechanism, or what I call a unique mechanism. And so, the best script writers in the world are able to do that time and time again. The second thing
That's
is
good.
100% the reframes, right? And you'll notice a lot of really great YouTubers or YouTube videos always start with a reframe, right? An example that I could do one in real time. A lot of people think that making a good YouTube video is about good editing, retention hacks, or a good thumbnail. But what it comes down to at its core is a good topic, right? That's an example of a reframe in real time.
Reframe.
And so the best scriptwriters I've seen, that consistently pump out quality scripts are able to put multiple reframes in, their videos, and they're obvious in hindsight, but like they're not talked about often, right? And so the best creators in the world, Alex Hormozy, right? You see him do this in real time. I think it's natural to him, where he's just saying fundamental truths about life and business that you can't argue with, right? That are obvious when you hear them, but nobody talks about, right? And I think that's what really, really good scriptwriters and copywriters are able to do, is mention things that aren't necessarily second nature, but when you hear them, they're obvious, and you get that aha moment.
Yeah. So when you're watching, then you feel the thought leadership, you feel the originality, you feel the freshness of the video, right? It's like, I'm not going to see this anywhere else. This is a unique perspective.
Yeah, it's a dopamine hit, right? Like, if as soon as you hear something novel and obvious, right, you will feel a little tingly sensation in the back of your mind. At the end of the day, all we're doing as scriptwriters or as content creators is we're trying to, hack the psychology of people to kind of watch the video and get results, right? And so, how you're able to do that is 100%, talk about things that are obvious in hindsight, but aren't necessarily talked about every day. And how you can do that is literally take your script once it's done and transcribe all your competitors' scripts and then compare them. And if it sounds like the exact same thing, you didn't do your job, right? And so if you really want to make content that performs and you want to set yourself apart from everybody else, you have to talk about novel concepts that are obvious in hindsight.
It's so cool that this is slightly different vertical to, what I do on a day-to-day basis, and yet I see the parallels like perfectly, because this is exactly what we do as copywriters. When we write emails and we write sales letters and ads and whatever, it's always, how do we not sound like the competitor? Like in every single way. How do we create the differentiation where it matters? How do we deliver a unique mechanism so that people see that this product is different, right? Yeah. And it's just the same thing as the video is kind of like the product then, and you're selling this video. You're kind of selling the video.
Yeah, it all comes down to that. Like it's Dan Kennedy kind of taught everybody, and then it kind of trickles down, but he didn't invent that, right? He just studied human psychology and kind of propagated it throughout the marketing world. And what's funny is all the tactics that we talk about are also cyclical, right? Because, they're going to be overused by some people in the next, 3 years. And then it's going to become cringe to use a roadmap in your YouTube videos, right? And so storytelling,
then you're going to go back to something else.
Exactly. And then it'll just keep looping, right? Where, we used to make YouTube videos when we started getting results 2 years ago in a completely different way, right? Where it was really like the step-by-step process. Here are the steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, that's kind of cringe. Where we're trying to move our videos towards now is think about, what is a more creative way to kind of represent the idea. And that's where we talk about, the retention mechanisms and, different roadmaps and, the example of the 12-month calendar.
Yeah, it's the fundamentals, but it's always about the implementation of them. I think many marketers listening to this might say, oh yeah, these concepts sound familiar to me, but the difference between executing them at a 7 out of 10 and a 9 out of 10 can be the difference between 1,000 views and 1 million views.
100%. My favorite thing is taking, all the things that I know about content. I have like a custom GPT that I've built with like, the fundamentals, right? Because at the end of the day, principles are more important. The fundamentals are more important than like all the small tactics. And I'll take a script and I'll just put it in that custom GPT, or I'll take, a short transcript, right? And I'll put in that custom GPT. And it tells me where I missed the ball, right? Because even to this day, where I have, all these philosophies in my head, I still sometimes forget some small things, right? And I think leveraging AI...
It's like a fundamentals checklist.
Exactly, yeah. Okay. And so, I would put it, for example, I would drop a script in there, and then it would spit it out. It'd be like, all the clear promise... The promise isn't really clear in the first 30 seconds of the video. You don't really use proof correctly, where it's not tied directly to the promise of the video. and your unique mechanism is a little weak. I don't know, right? Like it's not really painting the picture of what's possible for that person. And so anytime I like do that, I always end up with a better script. And I think that's the ultimate skill of a content creator, is to be like metacognizant of your ability to like go and get feedback from AI or whatever, and truly stay close to the principles and the fundamentals.
I'm gonna build a script or build a GPT, test some things. I actually got an idea from that. Yeah, that's good. I like it. I want to take the conversation in a little different direction for a little bit, because I know a lot of freelancers and marketers, they they see your career and how you went from I think you were working on most of the videos now to running the whole department. You had to evolve as a person. You had to develop skills that I know that you worked really hard for it, because we were working close. I remember that first video editor hire. It's been a moment. So, like, tell us a bit about the progression. Like, how did you get to this point?
I appreciate the question, because I don't think a lot of people ask or know about like the story of how we came about, right? And so, like for context, I started on Dan's team when I was 17 years old. I think 16 actually, or I was going to turn 17. And I started off as a video editor slash videographer. So I was just filming and editing the videos. And always was hungry for more, always wanted to kind of execute at a higher level. But I knew that it was going to be a long journey, right? And nowhere in my life would I have thought that we would build this crazy, uh, you know, team and media company and results that we have today. But it was kind of one step at a time, right? And so I remember when you said the first video editor that I hired, that was my first direct report, right? And so that I had to flex the muscle of being a manager at age 19, where I was essentially, I had a team of people. Eventually, grew into 2 direct reports, 3 direct reports, eventually 5, where I, was 20 years old with people older than me reporting to me and asking me for advice on what I think about, the marketing strategy of the company. And I think props to Dan for at every stage of that journey, he would give me more, right? And I think that's what he saw in me, is one, the ability to execute at a high level. Like I was always, somebody who took extreme pride in my work. But then 2 is I 100% knew that there were gaps in my execution. And so having that humility to look in the mirror and say like, where's my next level, right? Where do I need to kind of get into that next phase? And, whenever I would have, more people on my plate, or, would have big problems that I had to deal with, or, lack of results, I would always look at the mirror and say like, who do I need to become to be able to deal with these challenges? And the single best strategy that helped me in those moments was 100% go ask advice from people who've been to the place that you want to be. And one of those people was obviously Dan, right? As the CEO, he's been there 100 times, but he wasn't there all the time, right? He was busy running the company. And so I think the biggest advantage I had is my ability to kind of find the people who are executing at a high level and go ask them for advice, right? And and I think there's a couple of strategies around asking for advice that I think I'll share if this is useful at all. Because a lot of people in my DMs, I get insane amounts of messages, and I try to help out as much people as I can. Right. At the end of the day, I have limited time, so I get to the people that I can get to. But the best way you can ask for advice and kind of start to build a mentor-mentee relationship is, first off, quick ask. Right. Like, don't go over your shoulders and ask 1,700 questions. Like, state a clear problem. This is what I'm dealing with. And then make the ask, have a question, right? And say like, remove the pressure. Like, hey, if you want to send me a 1-minute voice message, totally cool. Most of the time, like that gets an immediate response, because people see that as
just like that,
light. They see that as a light ask, and they lean into it. And a lot of times, my best mentor relationships have started that way, where I do a quick ask, they answer, and I don't follow up. Right. The key is to execute that advice. A lot of people ask for advice and never actually execute. And so the second part is to go take action on that advice. So whatever your problem you're dealing with, your question, go execute. And then the third part, which 99% of people online don't do, and this will set you apart from 99% of mentees, is follow up with your mentor and tell him what happened when you executed. And especially when you were successful, share that with him. Because what that will tell him is that you're the type of person that takes action on his advice, and you go execute, and you circle back and you share how, because it's going to, brush their ego, how successful you were with that advice. And I'd say almost all my mentor relationships have started that way, where I do a light ask, he answers my question or they answer my question. I go execute. I follow. I give him a shout whenever I follow up, and I share the result. And then guess what? Next time you have an ask, he's going to be more likely to respond and help you out. And, a lot of people go straight to hiring a mentor or like paying people for help, which I do think is really important. Some of the best relationships I've built in the last 10 years have been off the back of asking for advice from, people who've been there in a super light, casual way.
I love it so much. It's like this is something that there are a few people that have influenced my life, and I think that's the thing that touched me when they asked me this question, and maybe they couldn't afford getting coaching or whatever, and it just shared something helpful back. And the next thing they say, hey, I just closed this client, I'm just working with this big business thanks to that one video or that one thing, and it lights up my day. It's like, wow,
100%.
This person actually did something. But I think there's another level to this as well, right? It's like you can do it with a mentor, you can also do it with friends, colleagues, people around you, and I think that when they realize that their opinion matters to you and that they're valued in your eyes, like you respect them and you're looking to learn from them, I think that also really strengthens really strong, like it creates good relationships for sure. I've definitely seen that to be very powerful too.
100%. And at every level, whenever I had that demon, right, when, I had my first, 5 direct reports, or whenever we started the media company, I had new challenges and I had new problems. And, I always ask myself, it's the who, not how, right? Who has the answers to the problem? I'm not going to sit here and bang my head against the wall and try to find a solution until I can find someone who's done the thing that I want to go do. And I go ask them for help.
How do you find them? Like, let's say it's a problem with scripting. What would you do?
I mean, I'll tell you what I did. So I always talk about stuff that I always tell people what I did. I don't talk about, what you could do. I always ask myself, who's doing that at the highest level, right? And if I can't get access to those people, who's working for them? And if I can't get access to those people, who's the second best, third best? I kind of go down the ladder, right? And I'll find someone in some space that's doing it at, a higher level than me, that has a team that I can go and, ask advice from. And now it's funny because now I'm kind of that person, right? So I try to give back as much as possible, because I was that guy that was DMing, the head of short form at this, big personal brand, and trying to get advice, right? And so I think that's the coolest advantage that we have today, is our ability to go reach out to those people. And so, if I was searching for the answers, especially on the script writing side, I would go find, who are the top 5 entrepreneurs in the space that are making the best YouTube videos and who's on their team. And it's pretty easy to find out. And then, do the same thing I shared earlier, right? Like, don't overload them with a ton of questions. Like, have a really clear problem that you're trying to solve, and then ask a question. And then, don't ask more follow-ups after that. Just go, cool, I'm going to go execute on that advice, and then follow up once you get results.
I think a few people are going to use this on you after this interview.
100%. I'm all for it.
Yeah. No, that's good though. Yeah. You mentioned earlier that, it's one thing to obviously grow on organic, and it requires like 6 figures potentially per month to get to the kind of level where you really scale. I want to talk about that monetization side now. Like, how do you make that financially worth it work? How do you make it work?
100%. I think there's two separate models that I see creators kind of execute online right now. One is, sponsorships. Early on it's harder to get, sponsors that will actually pay, but now I get asked on a daily basis, for kind of placement with Dan. And there's reasons why we don't do it, which is kind of what I'll dive into, which is the second model. But there is 100% a way to monetize online. I see tons of business, finance, even entertainment creators that are monetizing through sponsorships, and that's totally cool, right? Like I think that's a beautiful way to get your message out there and also be able to put food on the table. The second way is to have some kind of product or offer, right, that is unique to you. And so you could do consulting, coaching, you could do a software product, you could do anything, right? You could do a service and just have your personal brand as the distribution engine, right? Because I think people forget that at the end of the day, eyeballs are still eyeballs. And, you know, even if you have 10 people that are interested in your email service that are following you on your Instagram or YouTube, there's still 10 people, right? And you're able to monetize your audience over time using those strategies, right? Whether you have a coaching offer, whether you have a, you know, service offer, whether you have a product offer, you know, sharing a software tool, and, you know, as much as you can share those, then you will make money back. The third level, which is kind of a bonus level, where I see a lot of, especially business creators now, the biggest ones do this, is have a place where people can partner with you, right? Because, you know, we all know that cash flow, you know, makes you rich, equity makes you wealthy, right? And so you can build a product, offer a service, and make a ton of money, but it's never going to make you truly wealthy, right? Where you're not really going to build what Dan calls enterprise value, or, you know, the worth of a business, and then move on to an exit and sell and, you know, make these, you know, 10x, 12x, you know, multiples and returns. And, you know, everybody online that you watch that are probably the top creators online have a place where people can come partner with them in their portfolio company and start building, you know, companies within their ecosystem. And I think that's where I'm seeing the top content creators, especially in business, head towards, because they understand the power of building with people, right? Because at the end of the day, Dan can only build one software product at a time, right? If you truly want to execute at a world-class level, but if you can partner with 15, 20, 25, 30 founders, then he's going to be able to scale 30 products at the same time. And that's what we're doing at Martell Ventures.
I see. So then they're building the different products, and then Dan is the advisory for them.
100%. And there's a lot more to that. Like there's a lot of kind of things that we do within the portfolio companies that is pretty cool. But at the highest level, it's a way for kind of Dan to give back, come partner with me, and they go and create, you know, some of the coolest AI tools that I've seen in the world.
It's cool that it's at this level now where you can actually have a personal brand, and YouTube becomes deal flow from an acquisition standpoint, you know?
It's insane. It's wild. And you'd be surprised the quality of people that come in, because we forget that, like, founders, people that are building companies are still watching YouTube. They're still watching Instagram. Like, everybody's on there. And so, you know, people will think that, oh, if I make a video on AI tools that's, you know, more positioned towards the consumer, nobody's going to watch it. That, you know, is my ICP. But the truth is, if you have volume, if you have insane volume, right? If you're getting 200 million views per month, everybody sees that shit. Yeah. And you still want to make sure that's aligned towards your core audience, which are the people that buy from you. But at the end of the day, if you aim for volume, you will get more people. You'll get a bigger net, and you'll be able to partner with those people.
Yeah, I think people underestimate how many people at the level that they, like, the people that they look up to actually know that they're doing something. You know, I mean, perfect example, the other day somebody opted into my email list, and I saw their name, and I was like, no way. Why would they opt into my email list? I'm not even talking to them about their problems in their business. And so anyway, I reached out to them. I was like, hey, you know, I really appreciate you, joining my email list. I thought, let me ask you what you're looking for, something specifically. And they say, yeah, so we're looking for help with our 1 million contact email list, actually, and we'd love help, like, if you can give us some ideas on this and that and the other, you know? And I was like, yeah, of course. Like, how can I be of service, you know? So over the last year, I've seen something I've never seen before. Copywriters and marketers, they're making more money than ever before, especially the top 1%. And if you want to be one of them, and you want to join us, and you want to get, you know, insights into exactly what's happening in our industry, and also get my raw and unfiltered thoughts, the stuff that we're not sharing here on YouTube, then apply to join my email list at list.copywriting.org. And yeah, I'll see you in my next email. Now let's get back to the video. People are watching. I think some of the most successful people, they're sometimes lurkers until they have a problem that they need solved. you know. They will
Yep.
just kind of see that you're doing stuff, or your client is doing stuff. If you're working for a business owner with a personal brand, you know, you're doing stuff, and then so I'm sure you've had this, right, Sam? Like where somebody will just reach out to you that's a high profile brand, personal brand, and reach out to you and say, hey, you know, I see that you running stuff for Dan, would, you know, and then suddenly, oh, I never thought that person was kind of like watching what we're up to here,
Yep.
you know.
100%.
So it happens, and I think that's, yeah, there's just there's so much upside, and there's really no downside even from that side. Like I've looked at this YouTube channel with interviewing people on this podcast, you know, and being able to bring on some really cool guests and meet some really cool people, and also catch up with, you know, some of my close friends and things like this, right? And, you know, it obviously costs money to run the podcast, but I would say just the deals and the networking and the circle of people around me, even if I didn't sell a single product from my YouTube channel, is probably like 2-3 times the return just on building a network itself. So I can imagine for somebody at Dan's level where you know, you have, you know, venture capital, you're investing in businesses, like that is, it's happening there as well. What about on the offer side? Like what about the like the direct monetization, direct response aspect of organic?
Yeah, totally. And I think we have a simple model. I don't think we do it in a very unique way that 99% of content creators wouldn't copy, because it is inherently designed for extreme volume, and it's also something that, you know, Dan has designed around his life, right, where he prefers it this way. Because the you know, highest level of monetize is just to do like, you know, some kind of uh one-on-one coaching offer that's extremely expensive, and you know, you would just do a few of those and then maybe do like a group offer, right?
Hmm.
But the way that Dan wanted to do it is way more fun, and it's to create a community where, you know, people, business owners come and get a shit ton of results, right? And so we sell that community and that coaching through something that is very unique, which is sell by chat,
Yeah.
that a lot of people don't understand yet, but I think it's the future, because I don't want to hop on a 45-minute call. I don't know about you, if to get sold something. I just want to send somebody a message and, you know, pay them an amount of money and get access to, you know, community coaching, whatever it is. I remember my first mentor that I actually hired for short form content. I think it was 20 grand to, you know, join his mastermind, and I bought it over Instagram DMs. And I didn't really click for me until I did it, and then 2 days later, I was asking, I was like, oh shit, I just bought something for $20,000 over DMs, right, without a call.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and so that's kind of how we get people into the program. And then once they're in, we have, you know, 5 daily non-negotiables that they have to do. You know, funny enough, unique mechanism that gets people to get results extremely fast. And then they have, you know, a weekly call with Dan where he's sharing, you know, the tactics that he's implementing in his portfolio companies. So they get first kind of look into what we're building at Martell Ventures, and, you know, how Dan thinks about building a business. So that's kind of like the consulting coaching side.
Wow, that's quite like to just jump in there real quick. That's quite a mass market B2C, or like business like startup business owners, and just getting momentum offer. That's it.
Yeah, well, it's business to business. And you know, there's a lot of seasoned people in there. There's some people that are starting off. We don't sell to anyone who doesn't have revenue. So just to make that clear, if anybody's listening and they're like, oh, I have the startup idea, I want to join Dan's program, like, we don't. But yeah, for real business owners, they're able to kind of go into that community. And I think it's a really cool thing that Dan does to give back, because he doesn't have to, right? He can just
Yeah.
sit and build his AI software companies. But he wants to give back to his community in a way that is a little bit deeper than the YouTube videos, right? Where it's actually implementation, not just information.
And all the other businesses that he's been running, has he got other people in there running those?
Yeah, he's got. So what's cool about Dan, and I really admire of him, is he 100% prioritizes lifestyle over, you know, legacy. And so he really, really wants to build a life that he loves living, and he's achieved that, like, arguably better than anybody I've met online, and in person. And so you'll notice that all his companies have CEOs, right? Like, he's not the CEO of really any company. he has people run his companies, and he collaborates with those CEOs. He's always available. But at the end of the day, if Dan decides, and he just did it, to leave and, you know, travel the world for 5 months, he's able to do that, right? Where I'd say
Most can't do that. Yeah.
99.9999% of other big business owners, like not even just like startup founders, huge business owners, aren't able to do that because they've built a business as a cage, as a trap, as a jail that they're kind of stuck to. And there's a ball and a chain attached to their ankle where they have to be in office. They have to be on those calls. They have to kind of hold on tight. And that is 100% Dan's philosophy is, you know, if you find people that you trust and you empower and, you know, you build them up, just like myself, you're able to step back and, you know, live this amazing life.
Yeah, no, I've always learned a lot from Dan. You know, in my time working with you guys, I think that was some of the most powerful mentorship I had. I guess you could call it mentorship indirectly, because watching Dan build companies, watching the culture of the team, you know, like small stuff. Like I remember when I first joined the team, for me it was normal to work on weekends. And Slack was like quiet. There was like no one on Slack. Yeah. And I was like, what is going on? There's like no one on Slack. Just like, you know, people on the team just like had a high quality culture. And I just remember that a lot of the infopreneur business owners, from a little bit less experienced entrepreneurs, there's a lot more of this. I mean, obviously you always want to work hard, but it's like we respect each other's lives, and we create space that we can have a lifestyle as well as do the business, as long as we can get the outcomes. And just a lot of the leadership and a lot of the structuring and how to think about building teams and buying back time, I definitely would say has helped me to lead my team and helped me to help, you know, business owners and copywriters. So that's been really great for me, and I see it's, you know, been the same for you now that you've built your team. For copywriters and marketers who want to go deep with one business, because this is kind of where you have a crossroad as a you know, you're either going to go build your own business, which I think most of us, if you've been in the space for a while, you kind of know it's better to work directly for somebody, learn from somebody directly for a long time, get that mentorship, and then decide if you want to do that. Or you work in their business, kind of like entrepreneurial. You kind of build a business within their business, if they're the right type of person. Or you go and maybe build an agency or kind of go out on your own and build your own business. But for the people that want to go deep with their clients, you've definitely done that. You know, you've gone deep with Dan. You've been there all this time. I think I saw he bought you a car. What happened there? Like,
yeah, that was about 2 years ago. He bought me a Porsche GT4, which, you know, I'm extremely grateful for. But yeah, it was partly because of that, right? Where it's like, let's commit, let's build something. And honestly, that was like just the start of the results. But yeah, it's been pretty cool over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think people don't realize that if you do it with the right person, there's an entire life, and a very rewarding life. And I don't think everybody should go and build their own thing. I think it makes sense to actually work with somebody, partner with people. Not everybody is the kind of person that wants to go out on their own. And maybe this is, yes. What would you say to them? Like, what's the thinking process of going deep like you have?
I think the core problem, if I had to distill it to like the single thing that most people don't think of, is their 10, 25, and, you know, 50-year goals. Because I was extremely blessed enough to, you know, have those in mind as early as, you know, 15, 16, where I knew what I wanted to do with my life, right? Like I knew I wanted to be a successful business entrepreneur. I knew I wanted, you know, these accolades, and I knew what I wanted my lifestyle to look like, right? I wanted to, you know, have a house, Canada, all that fun stuff. And so once you have those in mind, you can kind of figure out how to fast track yourself to that success, right? Because I could have started an agency and made 10K a month and struggled to make 15 and struggled to get my name out there and not have any connections and, you know, not know the playbooks of how to scale a company. Or I could go work for the person that I deem as the best operator in the world for a long period of time and help him get results, and then build my network and connections inside of that business. And what's cool is at some point, if you do commit and you go all in with one person, you'll get to a point where your dreams and goals end up being possible within the container of that business, right? And so I've told this to Dan, and we've told this to each other thousands of times, but we will work forever. We will work together forever, right? Like that's just known. And so with that frame, we're able to plan in 10, 15, 25-year increments where we know where we're going, right? And
That's so cool.
there's also the side of, if you go work for someone, you better get results. Because, if I don't make Dan tons of money, he's not going to give me tons of money or a car.
Yeah.
And so if you really want to, go all in with someone and still make, a decent amount of money and still be able to build that connection network and be able to get access to those, you still have to get that person results, right? And that comes back on you, which I think not a lot of people are willing to take that bet, right? A lot of people, would rather run an agency that gets decent results for 10 people that makes, 15, 20K a month than take a risk on themselves, not just the creator, but on themselves and go, I'm going to scale this person to be the biggest personal brand in the world, in the business niche. And I don't care if I make 5K a month for a long period of time, because I know on the other end of that, all my dreams and goals are going to become a reality.
You really have to be very, very selective who you're teaming up with. I think that's the biggest part of it as well.
Yeah, it's a blue chip investment, right? Like I knew Dan had the talent, the luck, he had the network, he knew, how to execute at the highest level, and I knew he had the hunger to do it. So I'm like, cool, I'm gonna partner with this person, and it's it is a risk that you have to be willing to take, and you have to be a good picker too, right? Of the person that you're gonna kind of like double click on.
I think the thing with Dan is that he's built lots of businesses that aren't in like an info bubble. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I think, look, I mean, business owners that run courses and coaching, I think they're, it's a type of business, it's a model, but the type of operations and the type of integrator skill sets that you need for coaching business, I mean, I don't know. I just think that there's a lot more to learn I think there's more complexity to building, let's say, a software business. I mean, I've definitely seen, when I was working with you guys, I definitely saw like the level of operations in there when I would go work with other as a marketing director and as a copywriter and stuff in other businesses. Their operations were like zero compared,
Yeah.
It's like, I'd go into the business and I'd be like, okay, guys, what's our, weekly KPI tracker or like our monthly pulse, or where are we tracking the data? And it's just all over the place. And I'm like, okay. Well, I mean, obviously they're doing a good job. They're making good money, but I don't think I would want to partner with that person and rely on them to scale. Because what I tell a lot of copywriters is you can't outperform the CEO. You can never outperform the CEO, right? So you have to make sure that if you're going to be partnering with somebody, that they're, you got to feel a little bit of pressure to keep up with them, I think. I mean, I don't know how does that go with you guys? I mean, you always got to keep leveling up because Dan's moving.
Oh, 100%. And, Dan transforms every year. Like, you guys saw how fit he got the last couple of years. You guys have probably seen his journey on, even his public speaking skills. Like he was a world-class speaker before, but now I'd say I'd put him up there with the top in the world, right? And so even like his business skills, like he is forever hungry. And I think that's what's super cool once you find that kind of rocket that's taking off into the stratosphere is I'm still a self-motivated guy, but I still have to kind of take myself from the bootstraps to keep up with Dan, because he is 100% ever expanding. And if you find people like that in your life, like, bro, hop on, because that will create more opportunities and success in your life than anything you could generate for yourself.
I think that's a wrap, man. I think that was well said. That was great. Our conversations, we usually have a little bit more of a. I just taking all these notes here today. I felt like I was just like, okay, next question, I'm learning this. Next question, I'm gonna learn this. But yeah, really, thanks so much for joining me and answering these questions and going deep on content and marketing. Where do you think?
Man.
Oh yeah. No, I've had a good time. Where do you think copywriters and marketers should be focusing their energy over the next couple of years? Like, I know obviously AI is a big part of it, but like, where do you see the space kind of going? That's like the last thing I'm curious to hear from you about.
Yeah, I'll share. Like, I'm not the best copywriter in the world. By far, I don't think the best marketer. What I understand is, attention and psychology. I'll just share this. Like, your ability over the next 5-10 years to distill principles and your knowledge and your style into prompts and system prompts, or even just a document, right? Where you can store that energy, will be your ultimate advantage. Because once everything can be written in seconds all the time, right? We have AI content here, AI content there. What will separate you from everybody else is your methodology, your unique mechanism, right? Your way of doing things. And if you don't have that distilled somewhere, at least in a document, you will fall behind, right? Because, where people are executing at a 10 out of 10 all the time and you're only executing at a 6, you will 100% not be able to keep up with ever-changing demand. And I still think to this day, even when, my AI agent talks to your AI agent to schedule this call in the future, I still think humans will have a place where they're able to be creative. And our biggest advantage will be to kind of take what makes us unique in here and be able to communicate it to either, pen and paper, a document online, or even a AI model, so that we're able to kind of scale that genius. I think that's where copywriters and marketers should focus on.
Go back to the fundamentals, take those principles, make it your own, get that
data
what's
set, true to you.
Internal data set. Yeah. Well, thanks, Sam. That's been great. It's been really fun. Where can people find you?
Mostly Instagram. I just started posting content 45 days ago. So if you guys want to go follow me, Sam Gaudet. It's sam.gaudet. I think you'll probably link it up in the show notes.
Yep.
And send me a message that you came from here.
Description.
Send me a message. I want to hear from you guys. I'm gonna be posting content, my best shit on there for the next 10 years. So, strap on and follow along.
And to that, I've seen a lot of it already. I've seen a lot of your posts already. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. I like it. Yeah. I was like, oh yeah, this is sharp. Yeah. So there you go. Go check out Sam. And thanks for joining me, bro. And chat with you soon.
Thanks, man.
Okay, take care.